welcome to episode 49 of the Comic Watchers Show. I'm your host, Matt Meyer, coming at you from Oklahoma City. With me, as ever, are the other Comic Watchers. Guys, say hello to the kids at home.
Hello, I've had way too much coffee, so I'm going to be bouncing around this whole show. Sorry.
That's okay, Brian.
And it's Nicholas, coming once again from Carthage, Texas, ready to talk about some Harley.
We've got some awesome stuff that we're going to talk about this week. Harleen Quinzel from DC's Black Label and the New Mutants War Children from Marvel. But first, let's get a little bit of news. Brian, what do you got for us?
Is this our first time in a while that we've actually talked about both big two books? No, we did it last week, right?
Yeah, we did it last week.
Just kidding. Just making sure you guys are watching. All right. So first, forgive me. My notes are actually on my phone because I was going to email it to them, and then I ended up having to stay at work because I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to. But enough excuses. If you see me reading, it's because I am. All right. So the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles have been really busy this year, or actually the last couple of years as far as team-ups go. If you think back, we've had 3 different team-ups with Batman and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, including a movie this summer. I believe that hit DC Universe. So the Ninja Turtles are not finished teaming up yet. However, it's outside of the DC Universe, and it's going to be with Boom Studios. The Mighty Morphin Power Rangers are teaming up with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So I'm super excited about this.
Why the hell not?
Why not? However, what I like the most about, and kudos to Boom Studios for putting this out. So if you guys remember the first issue, I can't remember if it was issue 0 or issue 1, but they all sold out. So each Power Ranger was holding their helmet, and the different colors, like all of them were sold out except for Zach, or the Black Power Ranger, when he had his. And I think even that eventually sold out. So what's cool about this is what they're doing is kind of a version of that, except it's the Ninja Turtles holding the mutant or the Power Rangers helmets. So it's really cool. Like they're going back a couple of years and all that good stuff. That's just my own excitement, and my phone's not turning on. Okay. All right. As Arrow is ending in the Arrow universe, the CW is developing a Birds of Prey escape type of TV show. Right now, it's going to focus on the Black Canaries. I guess there may be 2. I am so far behind on the show. I don't know what's true and what's not. It's said to be set to take place in Star City, in the Glades, which, if you know that the Glades in the first season was trying to be taken out. They have the whole plot was about the Glades going under. So it's kind of going to be interesting to see if this goes through, what that's going to look like. Marvel's Ghost Rider will not be writing on Hulu, as reports tell us. It appears plans to move forward was canceled. However, there is some talk about it being rebranded. I don't know what to believe on this part right now, but for now, it's canceled in the form that we know. You can always make sure that you follow us on comic-watch.com to check out the latest information as to what's going to go on with Marvel's Ghost Rider. The only thing that we can confirm 100% is that right now the form that is introduced to us has been canceled. Let's see, what else do I got? All right, DC hires Ben Mears as editor on a temporary basis. DC editors Molly Mahan and Rob Levine have left DC, leaving it open for Ben. I guess Ben has done a couple of editing in the past for DC. I think he was recently doing Justice League, or at least some portion of editing for it. Either way, congratulations, Ben. We're looking forward to seeing what you come up with. The Joker, or edit, whatever you want to say. All right, so the Joker movie has been causing quite a stir lately. There's a lot of worry that there's going to be an attack in the movie theaters. If you guys remember back to 2012, that Dark Knight Rises, there's the mass shooting that occurred in Aurora, Colorado. So they're kind of worried that the movie is going to provoke another violent attack with that. The movie theater that occurred in Aurora is actually not even going to show the Joker. Like, that's how much that people are fearing about it. So I kind of wanted to bring this up. This is my last part of the news. So I kind of wanted to bring this up to you guys. What are your thoughts on this? Like, should movie theaters pull it? Are they doing the right decision? I think personally, whatever the owners feel and whatever they feel is right, totally do. Like, we will 100% support that. But are we also kind of going into that stigma where we're forcing people to say, oh, these type of movies, these type of video games are causing the shootings? What are your guys' thoughts? We'll go with Matt first.
I think that would be very, very foolish for any theater chain or individual theater to give in to a bunch of unfounded scaremongering. And that's, the movie's not even out yet. We haven't even seen it. We don't know what it's really going to be about or what sort of an effect it's going to have. But at the end of the day, there's no concrete evidence of a movie or a video game promoting, or rap lyrics, if I want to date myself heavily now, provoking, or hell, comics in the 50s, juvenile delinquency. Let's just keep it going. Any of this stuff actually having a causal effect on people's antisocial behavior. So no, I don't agree with the idea of banning the movie from theaters. That's just nonsense. On the other hand, I guess it was last night or maybe early today, director of the movie, Todd Phillips, came out and started crying about how the other side of the argument are being dumb about it. And I'm just like, and then there was some drama with Joaquin Phoenix storming out on an interview. And Nick, like you and I were discussing earlier, it's almost like the people that made the movie are actively trying to sabotage it. It's weird. And again, this movie hasn't even come out yet. Like, let's just see the damn film and then make our judgment on it one way or another after that. Nick, what do you say?
I think B makes an interesting point in saying that the theaters that are pulling this movie might be validating the notion that these types of films or these types of stories are actually the root of this issue. And that's just wholeheartedly not the case. I think we're all pretty aware of that. But it's also a tough issue because there are traumatic moments associated with these themes at this particular theater in question. And it's hard to dismiss how they're reacting to the publicity surrounding the movie and the potential impact. So it's hard to say they're wrong in doing what they're doing. I do understand it, but it does set a precedent that we should be aware of, and it is a discussion that's worth having because these types of stories are not the cause of this, and right now I think they're being used as a scapegoat. So it creates a lot of division and a lot of arguments around, how to handle these stories or who should be able to access them even. And ultimately it distracts from the real issue, which, the discussion has to turn political because that's the societal governing impacts that are happening right now and how we're interacting with this type of ongoing issue. And yeah, it's a shame that it's impacted us in this way, but I think it should be used as a way to confront what's really happening in our world and to use that as a way to facilitate that discussion. So these theaters who are doing what they're doing are almost playing their role in that discussion and bringing up these feelings, and it puts it out there for us to discuss and to confront. So I may not have the answers, but I do know that the Joker is not the root of the cause.
Nope.
Right. I do want to add as well, Dark Knight Rises didn't even have the Joker in it. So it's kind of interesting to see that a movie, even comic book based, I think we can all agree that there's been different Batman movies that have occurred since that happened. We had Batman versus Superman, Justice League, all kind of dealing with the same thing, but maybe it's a little bit more twisted. I'm not sure. Also, my where I was going with that is that why now kind of thing, or maybe it's because it has something to do with the movie itself. Maybe it has to do with mass violence to a lot of people, which Dark Knight Rises did have. If we remember the football field and attempt at terrorism, basically is what it is. So maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know, but I do find it interesting that this news is coming out right before opening weekend. It's going to be open October 4th. So it's kind of interesting. Is this just a publicity stunt? I don't know, because it seems like it'd be kind of hard to get that publicity stunt, especially since the movie theater is not pulling it. So I mean, the movie gets hurt as well as the theater. It's not going to make that money from tickets. So it's an interesting concept. I'm interested to see where it goes. It may go nowhere and maybe nothing will happen, or is it bringing attention to it to where, maybe it is giving somebody an idea to go and commit a crime. Who knows? I mean, this is going into a lot more psychological information, which we'll be talking about in Harley Quinn, which I'm really excited to talk about. But that's all I have for news this week. If nobody else has anything, you can always go to www.comic-watch.com.
Hey, I did want to notate, just as a real quick mention, that the Black Crown imprint at IDW got shuttered this week. So I don't know. I don't even know what comics were on the imprint. I believe it was the imprint that was curated by former Vertigo editor Shelley Bond. And I think it had around a 2-year existence, roughly. Forgive me, I'm just not very familiar with it. But, Shelley Bond was a hell of an editor back in the day. So anything associated there probably was worth checking out. So it goes. But, hey, we're going to move on to this week's books. We're going to start with New Mutants. War Children one-shot from Marvel. It is part of their 80th anniversary one-shots. It reunites classic New Mutants team Chris Claremont and Bill Sienkiewicz on art. The story has to do with Warlock, techno-organic being from the depths of outer space, spiraling out of control, and his techno-organic virus infecting everyone that it sees, and the New Mutants must figure out what to do about it, while at the same time, Illyana, also known as Magic, succumbs to the Darkchild aspect of her mystical abilities. So, twofold crisis, a lot of New Mutants running around in basic blue and yellow jumpsuits with red X belt buckles. Guys, what did you think? Brian?
I was going to say if I could go first, because I'm sure Nick has a little bit more to say about it. I don't know. It was okay. It felt like it was... I don't know how to explain it. I don't know what the hell happened in that book. It was fine. I like the art. Like, they definitely were trying to make it dark and edgy. It also makes me wonder, I was wondering prior to this, before you mentioned that it's the 80th anniversary, I was wondering if New Mutants, because that book is coming, or that movie may or may not be released.
Nope, never happening.
I think it's supposed to be next month, who knows. That it had something to do with that, and that kind of had the original team, and it was horror-based, HORROR, not the other one. So I don't know. I mean, it was okay. The art was fine. The story was okay at best. I didn't enjoy it, but also I've not read a lot of New Mutants in the past. I like the team, but I haven't read New Mutants itself in the entirety of its run. So for me, it was okay. I felt like it's been a story that's been done before. But it was a nice little check-in. Oh, I remember the New Mutants. That's basically all I have on that one. Nick?
So yeah, I mean, I'm sure Matt's going to be able to dive deeper into this one because he has more experience with New Mutants. But first off, it had a horror aspect that I thought was going to really suck me into it because the artwork really lends itself towards that aesthetic. And so that kind of got me interested, but it was such a fan servicey book for people who have followed that series. I was lost on it. I wasn't welcome to this party. So I got into the book and I could follow along with it. It's this 80th anniversary one shot, and it very much functions like that. So it's a fully realized story from beginning to end, and it's enjoyable in that way. But most of the things that are supposed to get you excited about this book, I missed out on. And it's interesting because we had recently talked about one of the 80th anniversary issues on this show. I believe it was the Incredible Hulk one from Peter David. And I loved that issue because it wasn't stooped in fan service. It was a story that welcomed you and told a succinct story that was enjoyable, that kind of felt timeless even. And this one feels almost opposite of that in that it's meant to be entered into this already or pre-existing run that people are already fans of, that they're going to see it and pick it up. I've seen people on Twitter, CB Sobolski, and a lot of creators really excited for this book because they were such fans of what New Mutants have been doing in the past and what this team means to them. So I was excited to read it for the show just for that reason. And I really did try to find those enjoyable aspects in it, but it was a tough one. You really have to search for it because if you're not already engaged with the long-standing history of the series, you're just gonna kind of fly through it. Like I said, the art was, I love the horror aspect of it. Every time they got into that, I really dug it, but it was so scattered and sketchy that it was almost hard to decipher what was happening in these panels. And it began to feel like the narrative almost. It just started to feel scattered. And by the ending, they're all patting each other on the back, and you know everybody's good now, and that's a wrap on it. But that it wasn't enough to make me really excited about the book or make me want to dive into the New Mutants run. And it had an opportunity to do that. Had an opportunity to make a lot of new fans if that's what it was gonna be. And it just didn't really pull that off for me. But I'm sure everybody's excited about this book, and that doesn't discredit their excitement for it or more than likely the execution of this book. It was just not for me. Matt, what do you think?
So a little of my reader backstory before I really dive into my review of it, and I'll keep it as succinct as possible, but Claremont's X-Men are my jam. That's what got me in love with comics, period. New Mutants is part of that. So for me, if nothing else, and fully aware that Claremont himself has not changed his writing style with the times, I approach this with some trepidation because it's never the same when the band gets back together. And this comic was no exception. I mean, Claremont's skills are rusty and dated, and Sienkiewicz is still awesome, and I don't want to ever detract anything from him, but he's not who he was 35 years ago either. So, and I don't want to knock either creator for being who they are. We should never do that unless it's to the detriment of the story. So yeah, this was really a, like you guys are saying, it's fan service for people that love the comic. It's really New Mutants' greatest hits in a lot of ways. I mean, you've got the most cherished creative team in the book's run. Claremont and Sienkiewicz together again. You've got Warlock, Cypher, the Cannonball, Sunspot, all of those classic characters, plus Kitty Pryde, because why wouldn't you want Kitty Pryde? And Lockheed, mustn't forget him. And then, of course, you have Illyana turning into Darkchild, and I know, a nod to Danny Moonstar's time as a Valkyrie, which was also a pretty big story there in the history. But I mean, again, if you're not familiar with this stuff, even tangentially, you're probably not going to have much of an appreciation for what's going on here. So I mean, the no, Brian, that's a false lie. Brian says that nobody wants Kitty Pryde on a team, and that just hurts my heart. But there's a narrow niche crowd of older fans that are going to appreciate this book. I couldn't possibly bring myself to hate on it for merely being what it is. And now I will say though that I read an interview with Claremont earlier today where he was saying that he and Sienkiewicz approached it literally as just the next issue in their run when they were kind of crafting the story together. So that right there tells me that, I mean, they're just going right back to that core story, and the hell with anything else that's happened since then. This is one for the fans. Okay, I'm cool with that. At the end of the day, I really just don't have much else to say about this book. If you're an old school Claremont era X-Men fan, check it out. If not, you're definitely isn't going to be for you. So guys, any final thoughts? No? Okay, well, let's move on. We have got DC's Black Label debut of Harleen, #1. Story and art by Stephen Sajic. And this tells the story of Harley Quinn's origin. It has kind of been rewritten, recast from a more quote-unquote less comic booky, more psychological, mature, because it's on Black Label, focus on the character and her ultimately tragic downfall and toxic relationship that she will form with the Joker. It is an oversized comic. It is $7.99, and spoiler warning, it is worth every penny. Nick, what do you have to say?
All right, so to start off, I couldn't agree more. It is worth every penny. I've already read it 3 times. It is everything that I want. But to be honest, when it was announced, I wasn't sure how to approach this. And I say that because Harley's origins are I guess divisive. They've created a bit of conflict because she comes from just being known as the Joker's girlfriend, and this was in an abusive and toxic relationship that was full of gaslighting and actual physical abuse, and it's the ultimate example of a relationship you don't want to be in. So they've pivoted this character in this newfound stardom into this anti-hero woman badass who's dealing with the background or her history of the relationship with the Joker. So this series comes about after that pivot, after we've seen Harley post-Joker and saying that she's never going back to him, that it's a part of who she is now, and she's moving on into a better path. So to retread that origin, I was a little cautious of it because of how it can be handled, especially today. And the Black Label option for it, I think, was the right idea because it allowed it to operate in a way that explored this character from a more serious perspective, but allowed us to engage with Harley outside of who she has become now, because it's a lot to take in who she is now. It's like introducing somebody to Deadpool. This character is just wild and whimsical, and then you put Harleen in your hands and you read through it, and it's just something else entirely. And that's where this book does so well, because it is a psychological take on this character. It's been lost a little bit of who she was before becoming the infamous Harley Quinn, excuse me. And I think when we when we're able to see this other perspective of Dr. Quinzel from this take of she's this youthful, brimming researcher who's on the verge of doing something that's going to change how Gotham operates forever, and she has something so critical to contribute. And I think it's that importance of her research and what she's onto and why she's at Arkham that is ultimately going to build up the inevitable downfall or her emergence as Harley Quinn, because the Joker's going to essentially take this gift that she's trying to bring to Gotham in this research that's already got politicians scared about what it's going to do to the jailing system and how they incarcerate citizens and stuff like that. I mean, she's on to something. And we as readers know what's happening. We know what's coming. So this story knows that. It takes that, what readers are bringing into the story, and it uses it to its advantage in creating this like creeping tension that just builds on every panel. So you see shadows of the diamonds behind Dr. Quinzel, or when she arrives at Arkham, there's the shadow of Harley Quinn behind her. And I think it's a lot of that this series or this issue really works so well on, because it knows what's coming, but that's not the story. The story is how she gets here and her meeting with the Joker and what's going to emerge from it. And the loss isn't just, her direction in life. It was a loss of what she could have offered to Gotham, and it makes her just one of the more interesting minds in DC's lore to explore. So I thought this was a great opportunity for him. There's so many series right now, her with Poison Ivy, her ongoing, and that just don't get into this aspect of the character. That's why I'm such a big fan of her. You can do so many different things, like Batman. You can do all these different miniseries and explore different angles of the character, and he works. And Harley Quinn's one of those. That's what's going to make her a lasting character. And I think this story might be, if it continues in this direction, it could be a lasting story that people will look to for a definitive origin, because it reads so well. To be 64 pages, it's easy to go through really quick. And I love that. It's not action packed, but it operates in this tension and this foreboding fear of what's going to come. And it's just really cool. I brought it up in my review that it works along the lines of Silence of the Lambs and the discussions that take place in that film. And oh my gosh, like, it's just awesome. It works so well for Harley, this horror, thriller, suspense angle, and yeah, a more adult tone. So I think it's really cool. I'm really excited for what they've done. I'm glad that they handled it with caution and tact and restraint, even in how she interacts with the Joker, and the ending panel of her saying Mr. J. Oh, yeah, that's what the whole series is. So really excited for it. B, what do you think?
All right, so I literally have Post-it stickies everywhere because I took notes because I was at work and I had to read. That's for the next segment. Okay, so I actually disagree with Nick on some points a little bit, but not really. Okay, so the writing in this is on point. Like, they made everything super factual. And what I mean by that, I mean even the little things in, say, like when she was talking about psychology, the brain, how it operates, they took very particular things of it. Like, he did his research. For example, like just the little thing of where she was 31 at this time, that's exactly about the right time and age where somebody outside of comics would be doing their doctorate or their residency. So I thought that was actually really brilliant, because a lot of times they always try to make characters like 20, 28, because you don't want to make it too old, because then people aren't going to want to read. Screw you. So I really like that point. The art is absolutely stunning. Like, it is probably some of the best artwork in a comic that I've seen in a long time, or a while. I also really think that I'm sorry, I'm jumping around because that's where my notes are. I jumped around like, oh, when I was reading it, I want to point this out. Um, so I do want to point out that the art, or like I said, the art is amazing. And some of the things that stand out for me is that when Joker, where they first, actually even before that, when she was walking down, I think it's the very first panel where she's walking down like the steps, she's dreaming, and there's just the Gotham City behind her. Like, it is so stunning. It's not just a painting of the city, but it actually looks like it's a picture from wide view. So everything seems taller to get everything in. It was brilliant. It was really, really pretty. There's another point where the Joker was pointing the gun at her. And it's just like it's a splash page, but behind him, when he's pointing the gun, her life is flashing before her eyes. She's going over everything that she's done. It's just a stunning picture or a splash page. The other one that I wanted to point out was that Batman beating up the Joker panel, and they're like in a wishing well type thing, and the Joker's down, Batman's hovering over him, but above that is the logo of Batman, of his logo, and there were pictures of different things throughout it. It was just really brilliant. It was pretty. The artwork, I just can't tell you how stunning it really was, because every part of the page or a panel was taken. Like, there was no empty spaces left. It was all, the coloring was extremely beautiful. Just for the art alone, pick up this book. The part that I would say that I disagree with Nick is that I don't like the Harley Quinn running series that she currently has. I know, Nick, you're a big fan of it, but I think it's too goofy, and I think they're trying to make it more, some of it's goofy. I mean, there was this with her mom. There was one article that I absolutely loved that was heart-wrenching, but for the most part, it's an equivalent to a Deadpool comic. This is what I want, though. I don't want the kind of jokey, half serious, half not comic book. I think that the writers of the Harley Quinn ongoing are in a tough position because they want to make her a serious hero or anti-hero, but at the same time, they kind of want to leave it a little bit jokey. I think there's a lot of influences that the writer has to go through to equal it out. But this is the type of Harley Quinn book I want. Like, give me more of this. Like, I love this. I will read this for forever. So go check it out. Go to your local comic book store. Check out Nick's review. I was actually pissed that Nick called it before I did, because this is one of the few books that I would have wanted to review. So go pick it up. That's all I got. Sorry, I was all over the place.
It's okay. You didn't even talk about the colors once.
I did.
Okay, only in conjunction with the rest of the art, though. But to pick up where you left off, B, like, this is exactly what I want from a Harley Quinn comic. Mm-hmm. Somewhere along the line, Harley Quinn became DC's answer to Deadpool, and she's just all over the place, overexposed. It became hard for me as a reader to take the character seriously, and take her seriously is exactly what Harleen does. It treats her like a human being, three-dimensional, flawed, ambitious, like someone that you wouldn't mind knowing in real life. I mean, they really make Sejik really goes out of his way to make her a very empathetic character, and I love that. And the art just beautifully complements the story, and it flows just seamlessly. And the marriage between the words and the plot and the story, the art itself is just absolutely flawless. I can't add much to what you guys have already said about it, other than, Nick, your 10 out of 10 on the writing was 100% spot on, and the art's not far behind. I mean, there's a few panels here and there throughout where the line weight is kind of weirdly heavy in parts of the panel where I don't think it should have been. And I'm not personally sure if that was intentional or not, but it looks a little funky. But that's a very, 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 very minor critique. This is a gorgeous book. And
okay, that's enough from you. No, just kidding.
You've rambled long enough. No, it's a gorgeous book. Like I said at the top of this segment, I did not regret spending $7.99 on this. I won't regret spending $7.99 on the subsequent 2 issues. And if it came out at that price, for, as a regular monthly book, I would be happy to buy it every time because it is worth it. Steven Sajik has great things in front of him in front of his career. I cannot wait to see what he does next, because if it's anything like this, I will be first in line to pick it up every single time. So that's my 2 cents on Harleen. Guys, final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think to the point that she is this whimsical character, it almost goes to why I think Harleen works so well, because it creates this stark contrast in who we know Harley Quinn to be and who this Dr. Quinzel actually is right now. And I think it's in that serious tone and it's in that approach to empathizing with this character that it's going to work because of the arc that we know Harley is going to follow. Mm-hmm. And so this is creating this stark contrast between the whimsical, dark, humorous side that's coming and this researcher who we want to root for. And I think that's why it works so well. I'm a fan of who she is now in her ongoing and what Humphries is doing with her on the ongoing series. Doing some really cool things to humanize her post the Joker and post that relationship, and drawing on the struggle that's created both within the DC universe and for her internally. So to understand who she is in that series and then go to this wildly serious Dr. Quinzel who's just so hopeful to help Gotham, I thought that it created this arc for Harley Quinn that really concreted that twist or this downfall that's going to result in the emergence of Harley Quinn. And I think that's going to emphasize the impact of the Joker, and it's also going to strengthen what will eventually be her leaving him. I mean, it's setting this story up for just really cool things. And like Matt said, if it just kept going, there's so much it could do under this approach. Cool stuff.
Absolutely. It's a rare prequel that works because we know where the story is going rather than in spite of it. The very fact that we know she's going to eventually wind up in this toxic, abusive relationship with the Joker just creates this huge sweeping sense of tragedy about the events of this comic, and truly cause an impact on the reader as you're going through.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's how profound the emotionally profound this book is just cannot be overstated. So, okay. Well, hey, I think that's it for us this week. Let's move on into our final segment. Guys, what have you been reading? What are you looking forward to? B, you're up.
I'm always up first on this one. No. Okay. So I read Supergirl Volume 1 after Rebirth. It was challenging at first because if you go in and forget everything that you've ever known about Supergirl, go for it. Because it's almost like they're trying to retell a story but gave no background. So I talked to Comic Watch's reviewer, Ahmet, and he was kind of being like, yeah, it didn't make a whole lot of sense, but you have to read 2 arcs before to understand what was happening now. So it's almost like it wasn't a rebirth at all. It was just kind of like a whatever. So I didn't like that part going in. However, it's a solid story, to be honest with you.
I remember when that came out, I read the first couple of issues, and I was struck by it. Seemed like they were trying to cram a lot of the sensibilities and set props, for lack of a better term, from the TV show into pre-established DC continuity, and it just didn't work for me.
Yeah, you can.
I don't know. That was my read off the first two issues. Anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're actually 100% correct, because I was even talking to Annette, and I was like, this seems exactly like season 1, except it goes way back to when she was 16 and she's in high
Yeah.
school. So it seemed weird, because my recollection is she's already an adult.
Yeah.
She's, you know,
But they've got all
whatever.
these. There's all this pre-existing continuity that they're trying to cram all of those TV elements into, and it just came off as a hodgepodge to me.
Yeah. So, but the story itself, like if you take away all that knowledge that we've had previously, it's a solid book. It's about her learning to love her Earth parents. What would we do if we thought our parents were dead and they came back and they wanted you to go back to their homeworld that he's tried to revisit? Like that would be a struggle for any of us as an adult, let alone a 16-year-old in a different world who feels alone. So I thought that, I think it was Stephen Orlando who wrote it, did a really good job at giving her a different appearance and having her grow in that volume. So that was really cool to see. So actually, I'm going to continue reading Supergirl, probably not anytime soon, but it's on my list of things to do. I also caught up on Wonder Woman number 77 and 78. I don't know what I think of it. To be honest with you, the part that stuck out, I read it probably almost a week ago now. But for me, it was okay. The only thing I really remember is Steve and Diane are having relationship issues. Like Steve's kind of like, "Hey, what about me?" And Wonder
Oh,
Woman.
Steve's always like, "Hey, what about me?"
But it's a little bit different. Like she's kind of like giving him the cold shoulder, from what I can remember. It's interesting. I kind of want to see where it goes, but I know that I believe it's Orlando that may be taking
He's
Willow's
taking over in
spot.
November.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens there. I'm actually looking forward to it. I also read Doctor Strange, the last 2 episodes. It's going to be an interesting situation, because for the first time, we all know how he became a doctor, became Doctor Strange, the wizard that we now know and love, or sometimes hate, depending who you are. He got he's able to be a doctor again. His hands have healed, because he wanted to save this kid. So I'm kind of interested to see what ends up happening with this, because I believe issue 19 is the last issue for Doctor Strange, and then there's a new series from Marvel called Strange. So is something going to happen? Why is he no longer a doctor? I don't know, but I'm reviewing it, so I'll let you know.
Nice.
And I think the last book that I read that I thought pretty highly of was Chastity #1 by Dynamite. I liked it a little bit more than I thought I was going to, because I think, Nick, you reviewed it, right?
I did. Yes.
Yeah, and I was like, because I pulled it from shelves, and then I was like, I don't know, because Nick was iffy about it. So I went in with low expectations, and I was like, oh, it's actually a lot better than I thought. I actually think Leah Williams is a great writer. I can't wait to read more from her, and I'm actually going to continue with Chastity to see where it goes. I don't think it's an ongoing. I think it's a mini. I'm not positive though. What I'm looking forward to this week, come on, you guys. Kanto is coming. Number 5.
Awesome.
And it's 5 out of 6, so we only get 2 more, which makes me sad. I'm also looking forward to Black Terror, #1 by Dynamite. It's about this guy who likes his boring life. He's a pharmacist, and then he goes in and starts thinking about or getting flashbacks or memories of him being a hero. So I'm assuming it has something to do with that. And then from DC, I'm looking forward to Lois Lane #4. I think that's an on-point issue or a series right now. It's 4 of 12. I think that's pretty much
12
it.
issues.
Yeah. So what I look at, so the funny thing is I'll look through the list to see what's going on, and I'll only pull like 3 of them that I'm really interested in. And then by the time it hits shelves, I pull like 10, 20 times more than what I thought I was going to. But that's it for this week. What about you, Nick?
Okay, so yeah, this week I've been catching up on a lot of different titles, but I can't not mention the Valiant release of Bloodshot #1. It's something that everybody's got to check out. But not to go too in depth here because we're going to be covering it much, much more in depth in our new Valiant Watch episode that's going to be filmed tomorrow and coming at you real soon. So just sit tight and we'll be able to talk a lot more about it. Before the show, I got a chance to sit down and read the plot from Vault Comics. And this book's kind of been making waves because it was included in a New York Times article, and there was a lot of hype coming out for its release that it was actually really, really great stuff. And it's a horror comic, just through and through. It's straight horror. And those are iffy, because it's tough to pull off a truly scary comic. And this book, I sat down to read it and wasn't really sure what I was getting into. And by the end of it, I was actually unsettled. It was really a great paced book that built up the horror and delivered plenty of it. It didn't feel like it was just one big build up for a shock suspense at the end. It wasn't structured that way. It feels like this book can hold its pace for a really long time even. And it just set up something really cool. So while I thought it was interesting that Vault was pulling off something like this, I dived into it, and they're actually really into horror. So if I can look, they have what they've kicked off is an inaugural title with the plot of what's called the Nightfall line. And it's going to be an annual horror event that takes place around this year, and it's going to be these series that are just straight horror inspired. And it's almost like I get the Black Label vibe from it, from DC, that it's like this adult tone that they give a lot of creative freedom. And this book is a great example of what Vault's doing. I reviewed These Savage Shores from Ram 5 or V. My apologies, I'm unsure. I gave it a 10 out of 10 because it was one of the best books I had read at the time. It was just amazing, and I'm going to end up doing an arc review over it just to talk about it more because so much has happened. And Vault comes at it again, and they're just, I really need to look at them more for horror because the plot is awesome. It was just really great, and I immediately had to dive into a review. I had so much to say about it. And those are the kind of books that really pull me in and get me excited.
Awesome. Who's the creative team on it?
That was, I know Tim Daniel wrote it along with, is it Michael Mordecai? Unsure how to...
Mordecai?
The last name, Moreci.
Morici.
Morici.
Okay, yeah, I know who you're talking about. Awesome.
Butcher that.
I'm not familiar with Vault. I'm going to have to get to know that publisher a little bit better, I think.
Yeah, they really have been doing some great things. The artist was Joshua Hickson, who did Shanghai Red.
Yes, we all love Shanghai Red.
Yep, everybody loves that. So in that, Jim Campbell did the letters, and I got to shout him out because he did some really cool stuff with the letters in this book that helps ground it in the comics medium, and I always love that. It's not something that, would work in TV too, or would work in movies. This is purely comics horror. And awesome. I loved that. That was like one of my favorite things. But
I'll see if my LCS has it. I'm kind of curious to pick it up now.
Absolutely. And what I'm looking forward to. I guess the new Ghost Rider that's coming out is happening.
Is that this week?
It's that's coming out start of October. And looks like I got signed on to write it, to review it. So that's going to be exciting. And outside of that, really, I'm still catching up on Valiant stuff. So head on over to the Valiant Watch episode soon and check out what we'll be reading. Matt, what'd you think?
I read the absolute balls out weirdest Daredevil story ever. It was called Fall from Grace. And with a name like that and Daredevil, I mean, you just kind of have this born again vibe. I mean, it just automatically associates with that sort of thing. You couldn't not, especially given the religious iconography of the title. And this is not that at all. It's a weird little period of Daredevil where he was a young Scott McDaniel was on the art. He was on point. He'd really started to develop his style. So from that perspective, it was awesome. But the plot itself is a complete mess. It's just this hodgepodge of characters and story elements just all getting thrown together. You've got Daredevil, Elektra, Nick Fury, Silver Sable, Venom, Morbius, I think Jimmy Hoffa's body. And they're all after this guy that's got a virus that can give you telepathy or something. I don't know. I was like halfway through the story before it even started trying to make sense. And it just wasn't good. Was not good. So, McDaniel art aside, please avoid that era of Daredevil. What I'm looking forward to, though, Legion of Superheroes Millennium #2 comes out this week. I was really rough on the first issue in my review, and I'm sorry I missed the episode where we talked about it. But I really want to see this book succeed. I love the Legion. They've been long overdue for a comeback. This is supposed to be the big setup for their comeback. And I want to see this pull together all of the disparate plot threads that the first issue just failed to weave into a convincing narrative. So, Bendis, ball's in your court, man. Make it happen. So, guys, do you have any final thoughts? Yeah? Going once, going twice? Well, hey, that's the end of our show for this week. This has been episode 49 of the Comic Watchers Show. Thank you for listening. We'll be back next week with our 50th episode extravaganza blowout. There's going to be strippers and hookers and ice cream, and Cody might come back. And
I thought that's who you were describing.
No, I wasn't. We might even get Derbs to show up. JJ might show up for a minute, and it's just gonna be fun. We're gonna go nuts next week. So till next time, bye.
No more coffee.